Hey y'all, listen, I want to ask you something. Do you understand the importance of family? No, I mean the real importance of family. Because I'm beginning to think that a lot of us are losing track of what the fabric of this country and this world, but specifically the fabric of this country, is built on, and it's family. You know, the interesting thing that I think we all understand, maybe, I hope, is that when a man and a woman get together and they have sex, the ultimate goal on that is a baby. At least in most cases, that is the purpose of intercourse, is to produce a baby. And therefore that definition that comes from that is family. And regardless of what your reasoning might have been for having that sexual interaction, if a baby happens to come from that little interaction, that's family. And I think that we all really need to think hard about what we're teaching our kids about sex, and about what the outcomes of sex are, and about what the repercussions of producing a child is. And particularly what the repercussions are of producing a child and then abandoning that child is. What you are teaching your children really needs to be brought home to them in ways that they can understand what family means. And there are so many broken families out there. I come from a broken home, and I can testify that not having a father in my life destroyed my childhood. I mean, destroyed it. And I do blame my mom and my dad for that. Who else you gonna blame? I have forgiven them, although my dad is dead and been dead since I was 14 years old. I did forgive him post-mortem at his gravesite on my 42nd birthday, which also was the age at which he committed suicide. I did go and forgive him. That does not negate the fact that my entire childhood was ruined by the actions of my irresponsible parents. Family is family. When you have the gall to have sex that results in a baby, you have to take care of that baby until that baby is old enough to take care of itself. Now, in my case, my dad was a dumbass who was an alcoholic, drug addict, abusive, and all that. So mom had to cut loose of those chains. That is a reality of the situation that was in place. And so, yeah, I mean, that was on him. But anyway, but the whole discussion here is about the responsibilities and the love that comes from family, and how important that is to the fabric of our existence, particularly in the United States of America, because we have absolutely become way too liberal in our thinking about family. I can't help but believe that one of the primary causes for what's going on with our children today, in these shootings, in this bullying, in these problems that are happening, starts at the family unit, or lack of family unit. We need to get back to a certain moral fabric. And it may touch a nerve when I say morals, because you think that I'm referring to some religious fanatic or some right-wing thing, but that's not what I'm talking about. You all know the difference between right or wrong, right and wrong. We all do. We're born with it. I believe we're born with it. I really do. I believe that there is this instinctive thing inside of us that tells us the difference between right and wrong. There was a movie, and I can't remember the name of it right now, it's just coming to my mind, where a young lady is abandoned in the woods at a young age, where she has to live by herself in the woods, and grows up to be a young lady and whatever. But she's just innocent. She's innocent. She doesn't know or hasn't been exposed to the cruelty of free will in a human in modern times. But she has free will because God created us with free will. And she does not have within her the cruelty that comes from what we do out here in the modern day. But she knows the difference between right and wrong. In the basic understanding of life, she has that. It is an instinct, I believe, right and wrong. Now, in the modern sense, I can't make that argument, because we have so many things in our technologically advanced and socially advanced world that it's hard sometimes to tell the difference between right and wrong. Road rage is one of them, right? Is it right for you to go screaming at someone riding down the highway? Is that a right or wrong? You know the difference between right and wrong when you're doing that, because there's an anger response. But something tells me you know the difference between right and wrong in terms of whether you want to run that person off the road or not to cause physical harm. I don't believe that's taught in any class. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, except to say that I believe that human beings have an instinct about right and wrong. But parents need to do better teaching their kids right and wrong. What is the difference between fucking and making love? What is the difference between nurturing and throwing out the garbage? What is the difference between teaching a child to read and sitting him in front of a computer and letting him learn how to play war games on a video game? What is the difference between reading a book and allowing them to be programmed with electronic digital bullshit? What is the difference between love and bullying? Love and hate. We have got to get back to some common basic decency in the way that we treat one another as human beings. And it starts at the family unit. It's not that hard a thing. You don't have to go to church every day to learn the difference between right and wrong. Although it probably wouldn't hurt if you found a good church that doesn't bullshit you and feed you a line of crap. I don't know about that, but anyway. We have got to get back to a point where family means something. And if not family, then at the very least, the difference between right and wrong. I'm saying to you now that we need to hold these parents accountable and responsible for the actions of their kids. I have personally witnessed a parent using language with their kids, showing them pictures and videos, and allowing them to act in certain ways that will damage them for life in terms of their decency toward other human beings as they grow older. It's sickening and it's wrong, and they know it, we know it, but maybe the parent doesn't know it. That's one of the problems. The parent doesn't know because the parent wasn't raised properly. And I hate to say liberal, I don't know what other word to use because that's the politically or the socially used word for free thinking or whatever. The liberal-minded people seem to believe that there's not need to be a moral code, evidently. That it's okay to go out here and just fuck anybody and leave aborted babies behind and whatever. And I'm not saying that a woman doesn't have a right to do what she needs to do with her body. That's not the argument, because we should not be passing judgment on what a woman decides to do with her body because of a mistaken pregnancy or whatever. That's up to her. She's got to stand in judgment on herself. She's the one that's got to think about that the rest of her life, you know. And even though the man might have been part of that whole equation, he's not the one that has to have his body invaded with instruments to pull that fetus out. Although the man should be held more accountable. I know that I have, in my heart, in my soul, in my reckoning, in my accountability, instances where I was part of a situation like that, okay? And it comes back on me. Karma's a bitch. It does come back on me. So men are not left without the touch of that decision being made between the couple. But it's not that argument that I'm making, because we are too far gone, if I may use that word, gone. We're too far gone to say that no one will ever need an abortion, because there is rape, there is incest, there is mistaken pregnancies or whatever. These things happen, and we cannot take away the woman's right to have dominion over her body at any time. It is her decision to make, and her who has to suffer the outcomes and the repercussions of whatever that brings upon her as a result of that decision. It's not up to the Supreme Court. It's not up to us. You know, it's a constitutional issue for her, not for us. Once that baby's outside the womb, that's a different thing. So, family is the key to this entire thing. It's the key to all human existence. It's the key, specifically, let me address America. The United States of America has become so liberal in its thinking that we seem to be losing sight of how important it is for our kids to be raised in a wholesome, stable environment. There's got to be a balance. You got to find the balance. You can't just cut your kids loose. You can't be this latchkey kids, free range kids. like chickens. This idea of free-range kids is a frightening thing for me. When we lived in Newport News, Virginia, downtown Newport News, okay, my kids were allowed to roam our street between Warwick Boulevard and Huntington Avenue. One street block. That way, that's it. And we watched them like hawks until they were a certain age. We walked them to the neighbor's house where they could play. At one point, we did allow them to go over one street. When we moved out to Matthews County, parents were always taking our kids where they needed to go. Did our kids sneak out? Oh yeah, our kids snuck out. We found out later, okay? Were our kids doing some misdemeanoring? Yes, kids do misdemeanor, but there were repercussions. There were things that we did to at least limit that. We were a family unit. My wife and I raised our kids. We did divorce eventually, but we were together until those kids, the youngest one was 17. You have to do this. You cannot abandon your kids to free range. That's the most insane thing I think I've heard in a very long time. Our world right now does not support that. If you want to go back 30 years, 40 years to free ranging our kids, you're talking about them being in a neighborhood where they can run around between neighbors' houses and play together and that kind of thing, then go on back. Put up, get a time machine, get us all back there. That'd be great. Maybe we can start rethinking about our morals, about how we're teaching our kids. But until that time, free ranging your kids is asking for trouble. You don't have a right to renege on your responsibility, your accountability to watch your young kids. That's the craziest thing. Do not free range your children. You're going to end up with gone children, or raped children, or abused children, or drug addict children. You cannot turn your kids loose to free range all over the neighborhood. Oh my God, pedophiles are just chomping at the bit for that one. That's the dumbest thing I think I've heard in years. Anyway, look, just pay attention. Ignore what you're being told about how to treat your kids when it comes to unleashing them, when it comes to ignoring the responsibilities of a mother and a father to raise your kids in a safe, clean, and what I want to call moral environment. You have got to teach these kids right from wrong, and you must sit them down in front of a book and help them read it. The whole idea that our kids don't need that anymore is insane. Kids that can't read do not have a mind. Kids that don't read books do not use their imagination. Setting them down in front of a computer does not unleash the ability of their mind to create. It eliminates that connection. This is Rick. Take care of your kids.